Alright guys, how we doing? Welcome back to the channel, TSF, where we are talking Scottish football for a change. We're not playing Football Manager. This was, people might have thought this was becoming an FM channel, but it's not. We're back, we're talking football. Well, I say we, I'm talking football. It is just me today, so if you were expecting someone of more of a specky variety, then I'm afraid I'm going to have to disappoint you. It is just me today, no Ryan. So it means that there will probably be not very many arguments in this video. I might argue with myself, actually. To be fair, I wouldn't put it past me. I've done it in the past. And actually looking at some of the choices I might have to make here, there is every chance I'll do it again. So we're doing a tier list content, which is obviously, very unique. No one's ever done that before. And I'm actually going to admit that I stole this idea of this specific tier from James Alcott, who did what I'm about to do for the England squad. So what we're doing is we are ranking Scotland players on this list. I think there's 42 or 43 I've got down here, which is a lot. So we're going to fire through them. Let's quickly go through the tiers so we can see, explain what they mean. They're pretty self-explanatory, but we'll go through it. So yes sir. These are going to be the guys that are going to play. These are going to be the guys that are going to be boogieing away at the Euros. The absolute top tier, the first names on the team sheet. The nailed-on main men that are going to play for Steve Clarke Scotland at the Euros. Yes, sir, they can boogie all the way to Hampden and Wembley because we're not really going anywhere, which makes the name of the second tier a bit pointless because they're probably only going to go on the plane to Heathrow. I know, it's a bit silly calling it on the plane when they're probably not going to spend much time on the plane at all, but that's what they say. It's the phrase, isn't it, for guys who go to squads for major tournaments for countries. But I suppose we are certainly ill-informed in that department. But on the plane, so these are guys that I think are going to be in the squad. They might not play every game, but I'm 99% sure they'll be in the squad. So there'll be a few in there. Maybe's aye, maybe's no. The Kenny Dalglish category, as the old Only an Excuse sketch would have you believe. These are guys that 50-50. There's reasons for them being in the squad, there's reasons for them missing out. And there'll be a lot of variation in terms of these reasons. Some will be guys that aren't in form, some will be guys that maybe have too much competition in their position, who will be in the tiers above them. A whole host of reasons, which we'll cover individually as we go player by player. Wildcard, right, there'll be a few in this, the wildcard. So these are guys that maybe are youth players who haven't played for the senior team yet, guys who've maybe been out the fold that might come back in, a couple of maybe fresh faces that might make eligibility the same way that Lyndon Dykes did, so we'll see who's in there. I suspect there'll be a few in there. You'll be looking at the faces at the bottom, trying to see who's all in there, but we'll not go through them just now. We'll just do it as we go. We're going to go through every player and put them in there. And finally, Hamel Damie. So these are the guys that they're not going on a fancy Euros holiday, although I suppose we're all staying at home, aren't they, even the squad? No, listen, because at least the squad will be in the team hotel. So these guys are going to be sitting in front of the couch watching the Euros, or maybe, if they're lucky enough, they'll be in a pub, if that's possible, come June. Who knows? Actually, I don't think they'll be in the pub, some of these guys. But they'll not be in the squad, anyway, and they'll be in that Hamel Damie every time I try to say the word category, for some reason I want to say the word character. And I end up saying charactery. What does that even mean? I've never heard of that before. I don't know why I keep doing it. But anyway, let's just jump straight into it, because I've thought about this before, and I want to keep this video not mental long, because you could easily stray into it being that way. We're going to start off with the guy at the bottom of the list. You actually probably can't see him past my face. There's a wee plug for my Twitter in the corner there. But we're going to go with him. David Turnbull. David Turnbull's the first guy on to put in the tier list. And it's a very, very interesting one. He has been the shining light of the Celtic team in recent months. The only thing that hasn't been a disaster has been David Turnbull's form, and he is just a wonderful talent. And obviously yet to make his Scotland debut, but I suspect that will be coming pre-Euros and some of the fixtures we have before then. I suspect he'll get his chance if he continues current form. And this is probably a big shout. Actually, now that I think about it, I think a lot of people will immediately probably agree with what I'm doing, but the more I think about it, it is quite a big shout, because it would be quite the step up from having not been capped and actually not playing that regularly for the 21s, 4 months ago, to the tier that I'm going to put him into, which is based on current form, and assuming he keeps it up, which I think he will, because he's a wonderful talent who, should have been in the Celtic team a lot longer before he was. The fact he's done so well just makes you think, what was Lennon playing at? But I suppose people think that quite a lot. But David Turnbull, for me, and it might be the first controversial pick, is on the plane or on the bus to Hampden, one of the two. Next guy is somebody who is absolutely 100% or 99% boogieing his way at the Euros. He is in the starting 11, Kieran Tierney, and listen, I believe that we've changed to this formation in order to find a way to play Andy Robertson and Kieran Tierney. And Kieran Tierney, when he's been fit, recently played left centre-half for Scotland. Brilliant for his club, who are struggling, but he is the shining light, really, for Arsenal. And he's just a brilliant footballer. He's just so well for Scotland almost every time. He'll be in the squad. He'll be in the team for the 3 games, you'd imagine. So I'm 99% sure he'll play. I think most people would agree with that. Kieran Tierney nailed on. Yes, sir, he is boogieing his way at the Euros. That's the last time I'm going to make a reference to the song, even though the tear's there, because I don't want us to slip into this overdoing it thing, where I thought we were getting there December time, but thankfully it's going to calm down. Let's keep it that way until maybe May, maybe June. We get it going again, because we don't want to spoil it. It's really easy to spoil these things, but we're not going to do it. Ryan Fraser. I mean, I've got some solid picks to start with. He is 100% on the plane. Listen, at club level, he's not having the best of times for Newcastle. He's not getting in the team just now, which is amazing considering the mess they seem to be in. But for Scotland, always dependable, always a threat. I believe he would have started in the playoff final against Serbia had he not been injured. He played the previous couple of games off Lyndon Dykes, and what a partnership they look to be. And I think we might see more of that, if both are fit. But Ryan Fraser, the reason I don't put him in the nail on starter thing is because he is quite susceptible to the odd injury. He might not play much during the season. I'd still definitely have him in the squad, and also the form of a couple other guys who might be up top with Dykes. But Fraser on the plane. And it's another nailed on shout next, and it is the hero. It's the man who is in my Twitter profile picture and has been that way since that night, I think, where he saved a penalty. And I keep saying, I want to change that profile picture, but actually, no, I don't think I do. I'm just going to keep it as David Marshall probably forever, He is the main man. And he's Scotland's number one, and I'm delighted for him that he's going to get the chance to go to the major tournament. He deserves it. He's been brilliant for Scotland for years. And yeah, he'll be the man between the sticks unless something goes drastically wrong, which let's hope it doesn't. The next guy is someone who's going to go from, we've started with the upper echelons of this tier at the top level, and it's going to be someone who, for me, is going to be on the sofa with a tin, watching the Euros. And to be honest, if you look at John Fleck, he doesn't look like he'd be out of place on the sofa with a tinny watching the football. He's like your average kind of guy. Yeah, he's not really impressed for Scotland at all recently. Sheffield United are pretty dung. He's not impressing for them either. Sorry, John, but I can't see a world in which John Fleck makes his way back into the fold between now and the end of the season. Right, it's the first wild card. The first wild card of this, I almost said episode, but this is not like a regular thing, so of the video is what I should say. And it's somebody who is yet to be capped for Scotland, but he's the main man up front for the 21s. It's Fraser Hornby, and he's going to be a wild card because, we'd all be shocked if he was in the Scotland squad. But we're low on strikers. It's an area where pre-Dykes we were panicking about. I mean, who was going to play before Lyndon Dykes up front? I mean, Griff is unreliable in terms of being available. McBurney not done it. Burke not done it. Patterson not done it. Shankland off the boil. Who was Naismith injured all the time and getting older? We were really struggling there. Dykes came in obviously, and since then we've looked a bit better, but we still have those issues below Dykes. And Fraser Hornby has done well for the 21, scored goals. Could he make the progression up to the senior side? I would be surprised, but that's why he's in the wildcard category. Next one, Declan Gallagher, another guy who was imperious in the Serbia playoff. And despite my temptations to put him in the top tier, he's definitely going to play. I'm going to put him on the plane because he's definitely going to be in the squad. Motherwell are struggling this year, but he's got so much credit, Declan Gallagher, with how he did, recently for Scotland, that he will definitely be in the squad. There might be a way in which other centre-halves are in form and might get the shout in games up to the Euros and then dislodge Gallagher from the starting 11, but there's no doubt in my mind he'll be in the squad, providing he's fit. Next one's Greg Taylor, who I almost forgot to put in the selection, but he's been a regular in squads recently. But I think he's firmly in the maybe's aye, maybe's no category. I mean, he's not going to start for Scotland unless something goes drastically wrong. Robertson, Tierney are there. The thing is, I think there's space for another left back because Tierney, I think, will be predominantly used as a centre half. So Robbo needs a backup that keeps Tierney in the team as well, and Taylor has been that guy. I think he's come back into the Celtic team recently and looked okay. It actually was one of the bright sparks against Livingston last week. And I think he's a decent player, but again, there might be other guys who just lodge him from that role, or if Tierney, if Clark decides to abandon the Tierney at centre half thing and just switches the two at left back, who knows? Lawrence Shankland. If there was a tier here that said must do better, it would be Lawrence Shankland, because he's not at the heights this season for Dundee United in the Premiership after a goals galore season last year in the Championship. The fact that we are struggling so much for strikers means he's still got a decent chance of getting in the squad, but I think he needs to improve. Maybe's not for Lawrence Shankland. Ross McCrory, who is somebody who I did a piece last week for City Live about 5 players who could come into the fold ahead of the Euros, uncapped players, and he was one of them. My main thing for Ross McCrory is the versatility. He can play right wing back. He can play there. He can play centre half. He can play centre midfield. And he's been really good for Aberdeen when he's played this season. Obviously out injured just now, but providing he comes back and has a decent run of form, he'll be in the back of Steve Clarke's mind. But I think we're going to keep him in the wild card just now, just because he's an uncapped player, and I think he wants to play in midfield, and that's going to be a bit of a struggle with the strength we've got in the centre of the park. Next one's one of the easiest ones. It's the captain, another right up the top. He'll be in the team. The main man, Liv playing well just now, and that's well documented. Robertson has been one of the better players this season, despite the fact they've not been, flying. He's still been very, very good. The assists are not flying in as they have been, but it's not for the want of trying with Robbo, and he will definitely be in the team. He'll definitely captain Scotland Euros, providing something doesn't go drastically wrong. Robertson is in the top tier. Next guy is Ryan Porteous. Now, he's an interesting one because he's been in and around squads. He's been in the squad, hasn't he? Yet to make his debut, but Hibs are pretty rotten at the moment, conceding goals far too easily. You just had to watch the semi-final at the weekend, set pieces especially, and he's not been great recently. He's still young, so plenty of room for improvement. But at the moment, the way things are, I don't think Porteous would be going if the Euros were tomorrow. So yeah, Porteous, I think we'll miss this one out. We'll go him with sitting at home with John Fleck having a 10. Next is Callum Patterson, who's a really interesting one, because I think his best appearances for Scotland are when he played right back a few years ago now. Clark doesn't fancy him as a right wing back. He uses him as a striker, and he's been hopeless. He has been hopeless whenever he's played as a striker. I mean, I can't remember him recently having a good game up front for Scotland. I'm sorry, Callum, but you're joining Porteous and Fleck on the sofa, but you're not drinking a tinny, you're drinking a bottle of Doug, so fair play to you, son. Keeping it going. Liam Palmer. Right, we're going to do these two rapid fire. Liam Palmer, Stephen O'Donnell are both, for me, on the plane, and the reason why none of them are nailed onto play is because I don't think you lose out an awful lot whether it's Palmer or O'Donnell. I think they're both solid enough. I think it's the one area of the squad where we don't have a really, really good player, but we've got two guys there who are competent, have done good jobs for Scotland, and will both, for me, be on the plane, providing they're injury free. Obviously Motherwell not doing well this season. O'Donnell probably not having the best of times, but he's got credit in terms of how well he did in the playoff and the Israel game, especially Slovakia game recently at home. He did well. Palmer, before that, was probably Clark's choice. He played a lot more of the games in sort of the good run we'd started to go on. Palmer did really well. Missed out through injury, I think, for the Israel game. So O'Donnell came in. But those two will both be on the plane for me unless something changes, and they'll be fighting for that wing-back spot. Next guy's Big Kev, Super Kevin Nisbet, my man. Raved about him God knows how many times. You all know what I think of him. Flying this season, goals. But obviously still room for improvement with him. He's only going to get better, and I think that you'd find very few who would argue with getting him in that Scotland squad. We don't have goal-scoring strikers. Even Dykes isn't really banging them in at club level, for all he's amazing. Kevin Nisbet is scoring goals, and he has to be, for the Euros, things as they are, he has to be on the plane, and you'll not change my mind with that. Kevin Nisbet on the plane. Next guy, Stephen Naismith, who will be hoping and praying that he makes it. I think, had it been last year, Stephen Naismith would have been in the squad, but I think it's a year too far for Naisy now. I think that, especially being in the Championship, not exactly flying either. Hearts have stumbled a little bit in recent weeks. I just don't see it now. I think, as I said a year ago maybe, but for me, Nazy's going to have to sit this one out, and he'll be on Sportssound, I'd imagine, doing the post-match or on PLZ or something. But yeah, feel for him, because he's put so much work in for Scotland over the years that he deserves the chance at a major tournament. I just think it's too far gone now, and I think he'll miss this one out. Our next one is Lewis Morgan, who is a perhaps surprise shout. I think he would have played. I think he'd have been in squads recently if it wasn't for COVID, making the America thing an absolute nightmare. Same with Johnny Russell. But Morgan was in good form for into Miami. Started well in his time there. And I think he's got this damaged reputation from Celtic, which I think is unfair. I don't ever remember him getting a run of games kind of where he'd want to play. He was shoehorned in up front a couple of times, scored a couple of goals, but took a bit of stick, I think, unfairly, because the team weren't exactly playing that well at that time. But he's a wild card for me. I mean, I could see it. I could see him being in the squad if he picked up the form, if he started looking good again, and he's definitely a talented kid who I think Clark quite likes, because he's included him in a few squads up until this point. So he's a wild card, Lewis Morgan. And our next guy is the fourth that's going to go in the top tier, nailed on. He's going to play in the Euros for Scotland, and I have to say, he might be my new favourite Scotland player. He's one of them anyway, and that is Scott McTominay. Sadly, I've cut his head off in that photo, which is a bit of a shame, because it's a beautiful photo. And that's one of the things that I love about Scott McTominay, and I've warned him so much, was how much it clearly meant to him after the Serbia game. Emotional celebrations. He loved it. He has added a different dimension to us in terms of having a defender who can play up from the back, forward passes, get us going. He's learning the role. He's had mistakes, no doubt about it, and sometimes costly mistakes. Thankfully, the Serbia one wasn't, but apart from that, he's been so good. And he'll play. Whether it's a midfielder in the back three, he'll absolutely play, no doubt about that. Kenny McLean. Now, if Ryan was in this video, me and him might rekindle our Kenny McLean argument against Billy Gilmore. I'm not even going to go down that route today, because I don't think it's just not needed. I'm going to put Kenny McLean in the maybe's aye, maybe's no. Now listen, the two penalties he scored have obviously been vital, but I don't think apart from that, I don't think he's really done enough to go right. Kenny McLean for Scotland, he's done really well. I've never felt that. I've never felt like he's taken his chance when given a start. I've never felt he's been dreadful, but I don't feel like he's really made a claim for that midfield spots, and that's why he's a maybe, because a lot of it I think will depend on form of others. He's a dependable option for Steve Clark, who you'll be thinking of, but he could be dislodged, so he's a maybe's aye, maybe's not for Kenny McLean. Scott McKenna, divisive in terms of, I think a few people don't rate him, but he's on the plane, isn't he? I mean, it's kind of hard to find reasoning as to why he wouldn't be. Clark fancies him. He played a lot, obviously missed out through injury sometimes towards the end of 2020 for Scotland, but up to that point had been a kind of a mainstay at the back, and he'll be in the squad if fit. I've no doubt about that, whether you rate him or not. I think if I'm going to try to do this with what I want, but also what does Steve Clark going to do, I balance out Scott McKenna. And I'd have him in the squad, I would, because he's solid enough. He's absolutely solid enough. The next guy's Callum McGregor. He's somebody who I'm going to put on just now and come back and revisit him, because I'm going to put him on the plane. And obviously I'm not suggesting he wouldn't be on it. The difficulty I've got here is I think he's struggling just now. He looks tired, he looks frustrated, which is obviously understandable, Celtic situation, and he doesn't look the player we know he can be. Obviously he looks a bit burnt out, and out from missing the games he's played. He must have played more games in Europe over the last 3-4 years than anyone else in Europe. Sorry, not in Europe, but club and country, compared to anyone in Europe. He plays all the time. He looks a bit tired. He's not flying on top form just now. I think he'll recover that. I think between now and the end of the season we'll see more from him in a positive sense, because he's a really good player. But I think if the first game was tomorrow, I think there's other players down below that might fight him for that midfield spot. So we'll leave him on the plane. We might come back and change it later on, but he's definitely going to be there. John McLaughlin's a maybe's aye, maybe's no. That third, I think there's two goalies that are nailed on to go. Marshall, obviously, will be the number one, but I think the third goalie spot is up for grabs. McLaughlin's one who might be him, or it might not be, and I don't think there's an awful lot more to say. John McGinn, he's our talisman, isn't he? This is James McFadden. He's the talisman. When he plays well, Scotland play well. Goals from midfield, drives us forward, brilliant down south again this season for Villa. He is the main man, Super John. That'd be funny if that fell off the wall as I tapped it. Anyway, next one is Robbie McCrory, who, again, is that third goalie spot. I don't think at the moment Rob McCrory would be the guy for that. Young goalkeeper potential, not playing enough games. Striek obviously played. Striek played at the weekend for Livy in the cup semi final. I like McCrory. I think he's a good young goalie. I just don't think at the moment he'd be the one for that. Although I would like to see it, because in terms of blood and experience, you give a young goalie that experience of going to a tournament, it might stand in good stead. But based on, I don't think Steve Clark's that type to do that sort of thing. So it'll be Hamel Damie for Ross, for Robbie, maybe Ross. It's a bit of a wild card, Ross. But anyway, next guy is definitely probably the second most, well, one of the most divisive figures on this list, and it's Oliver McBurney. Where does he go? Is he on the plane? Is he not? Is he at home watching it on the telly with his bucket hat? Who knows? For me, maybe he's aye, maybe he's not. Listen, I've slagged Oliver McBurney rotten. You could probably dig up loads of clips of me having a go at him, but in recent times I defend him a little bit, because I do think there's a bit of a we want him to be rubbish thing going on. Thinking the last couple of chances he's had for Scotland, he's done okay. There was the one away, and I think it might have been Slovakia, where he missed a good few chances first half where he should have scored. But he was starting to look lively, starting to look like he was enjoying himself playing for Scotland, looked like a threat, which for his first 10 appearances he looked absolutely hopeless. Dreadful. I couldn't tell you one redeeming thing about his start. But in the end of 2020, he did look good off the bench against Israel at home, Slovakia at home, came really close in one of those games to scoring, held it up well, linked up well, did the basics right. Caveat that with the fact that Sheffield United have been hopeless this season and he's not scoring. But Clark obviously rates him. He's normally the go-to sub striker, so he's a maybe. Would I take him? I don't know. In an ideal world, I think we'd have guys that would outperform him, but it's not an ideal world in terms of Scotland strikers. I think Clark will probably take him, but for me, I don't think that should be a nailed-on thing at this point. Ryan Jack, now, this is what's going to annoy a few Celtic fans, but I'm standing by it, and I think even the most realistic Celtic fan would have to admit that Ryan Jack at the moment is nailed on to play for Scotland. He has made that sort of defensive midfielder role, or defensive of the two of the three. He's normally the one that sits deepest. He's made that his own, and he's been brilliant for Scotland, brilliant for Rangers. Back from injury now, after a good start to the season, injury kind of blighted him, but you know, he'll have a solid second half of the season. I've no doubt about that, and he'll be trying to make sure that he keeps his place in that midfield. And at the moment, I think he'd be the guy in there again. He's done so well for Scotland recently, and he deserves it. And Celtic fans will be oh, how can he be there? McGregor's below. Well, I just think McGregor's form is working against him just now. Again, we might revisit McGregor. I haven't made my mind up on him totally, because obviously McGregor and Jack as a two have been so good. But we'll come back to it later on, because there's a player I want to discuss with the Callum McGregor thing. Anyway, next one's Aaron Hickey, and he's another one for the wild card slot. And my dream for me is Aaron Hickey, obviously at Sampdoria, doing really well over there. Left back by trade, but very comfortable playing at the right as a wing back too. The right wing back spot is one that I think someone like Aaron Hickey could make their own over the next few years. We've talked about Palmer and O'Donnell being solid, but without being spectacular. It would be a shock if Aaron Hickey got a chance. But again, if we're talking about backup for Robertson, if it's not Taylor, someone like Hickey could make even that space their own. So he'd be a wild card, but somebody I think we'll see in a Scotland shirt over the next few years. Jack Hendry, right? I know Ryan's going, why have you put Jack Hendry in this video? I hate him. He's the worst defender I've ever seen at Celtic. Blah blah blah. He's doing all right this year in Belgium, isn't he? He's I'm gonna shout out Lewis Laird, who gives the regular updates on Celtic loan players. See him on Twitter talking about Jack Hendry. He's doing well by all accounts, and he's making a bit of noise as Jack Hendry about being in the Scotland squad. I'd be shocked, but yet again, I don't think we're. Well, I was going to say I don't think we're blessed with an I've got a number of solid ones, but I do think there's space for a young guy to break his way into there. I would be surprised if it happened, but I think he's worth noting in the conversation. Paul Hanlon played in the last squad, but he'll be at home. Sorry, Paul. I don't have an awful lot more to say about that. Just Hibs have been pretty poor, as we said, with Porteous, and he's not going to get any better now. He's kind of hit that peak, whereas Porteous, at least you could argue there's potential there. I'm sorry, Paul Hanlon, but you're no coming. Grant Hanley, I'm going to put as a maybe, and it annoys me because I don't think he's any good. I do think he's better than Hanlon. I think at the moment, he's probably wanting him over Porteous in terms of ability right here, right now. Porteous is a bit a bit rash and sometimes makes mistakes. You could maybe argue that the other way, but I'm also caveating this with Steve Clarke's mentality of I think he'd have Hanley as a sort of real backup option. Certainly not someone who's going to play, but he's a maybe. And listen, the maybe's maybe's nothing is equally a negative as a positive tier, because who knows? I personally wouldn't pick him in my Scotland squad, I don't think, but I think he'll be someone who's in Clarke's mind. Lee Griffiths, when I said about McBurney being a divisive figure, Griffiths is obviously the other one. If he's fit, he's on the plane. Of course he's on the plane if he's fit. I do want to say though, because I think it's quite an important thing, if you'd have said to me a year ago, I'd have said if he's fit, he has to start. I think those days are gone now for me. I don't think he has to start if he's fit, because I think we've got Lyndon Dykes, we've got Ryan Fraser, we've got a couple other boys who could start up there. I don't think Griffiths has to start if he's fit, and that is pleasing me because we were over reliant on him too much, considering he was so unreliable in terms of being available and fit. So he's definitely an option I'd take, because we've seen that when he's been back in the fold recently off the bench, what an option he is to have you looking for a goal. So he'd be on the plane, no doubt about that for me. Craig Gordon, another one who is on the plane. He is Scotland's backup goalie at the moment. Moved back to Hearts to primarily try and get in the Scotland squad again. Back playing football to do that. Doing well. And he'll be the number 2. He's been so good for Scotland, and he deserves a chance to go to a major tournament for the service he's given to Scotland over the years. I'm a big fan of him, always have been, and he'll be on the plane, not much doubt about that. Another wild card, and it's my favourite wild card, is Billy Gilmore. I'd have him in the squad if it was me. He's in the squad for me just because I think he's so talented. Give him a chance at a young age, even just to get him in amongst the squad training. And I think if you put him in training, he'd probably surprise you with the quality he's got compared to some of the other midfielders we've got. He is so good. Every time he gets a chance for Chelsea, brilliant. Not playing as much this season, admittedly, which does go against him. Doesn't look like he's going to go out on loan either, but I've got a funny feeling he might see more game time. Chelsea are obviously not doing that well just now, and I think when he came into Chelsea's team in the second half of last season, he was impressive, and Lampard might do something similar. Again though, Clarke doesn't strike me as the type to just chuck Billy Gilmore in for the sake of it, but I think his ability would warrant it. But hey ho, that's why he's a wild card, because he's never been capped before. And I don't think Clarke is gonna do it, but it'll be someone who'll be in his mind, definitely. So moving on to another guy who's going to the wildcard spot, and somebody might be surprised to see on the list is Ryan Fredericks, right back, West Ham, qualifies for Scotland through his grandfather, and it's an area I've mentioned a couple of times now. We can improve on that right back area with 2 solid options, but somebody could really come in and make that option their own. Now he's a wild card, because whether it'll ever happen or not, who knows? He might not choose to play for Scotland. Steve Clarke might not want him, but if he does, he'll be an option. So yeah, that's why he's in the wild card. Pretty self-explanatory, but someone who we might see some movement on in the coming months in terms of the Scotland squad. James Forrest on the plane every day of the week. He started to come into his own for Scotland, scoring a few goals. Celtic have missed him. And yeah, just a really solid attacking option. He'll 100% be on the plane, and he'll be hoping to complement the main man, Lyndon Dykes, who is starting up front for Scotland forever, I hope. Ever and ever. He's just unbelievable. What a player. Revitalised our attacking options. Our front line spearhead is Lyndon Dykes, and he's got it all, hasn't he? Pace, power, holds it up, got a goal on him. Good in the air. Just brilliant. Everything you want in a lone striker. And he's made Steve Clarke's job a lot easier, having someone finally he can say, he's my main man up front, work with him. And what a shift he puts in for the team, and he clearly loves playing for Scotland. Delighted to have him on board. Delighted to see him at the Euros. Can't wait. Liam Cooper will be on the plane. Very solid defender. Been a fan of him for a while. Wanted him to get more of a chance for Scotland. Finally starting to do it, and impressing when he has done it. The left centre half spot will probably go to Tierney, which means that Cooper will either be fighting out with Gallagher, McKenna for the middle one, or just being a rotational option, because I think out with Tierney and Robertson you'll probably see a bit of rotation in terms of the defenders. So yeah, he'll be looking to get a place in the starting lineup, and he'll definitely be in the squad. Now Andy Considine, it feels like we should put him in the top tier, doesn't it? It really does. But I'm gonna be a bit more objective with my thinking behind this. Now I'd love to just go on the plane, but he's 33. We've got he got in because we were maybe missing a couple of defenders. But what I will say, I'm not putting him as a Homel. Sorry, that was very, very English of me. Homel. It's Hamel, Damie. What a sketch that is, tune the fat. Have to say that is that's what gave me the inspiration. It just came to me. I was just thinking, what am I going to call this bottom one? And then that sketch came to me. Superb. Right. So he's going to be a maybe he's maybe he's no, because if we have a couple of injuries, he's proved that he's dependable enough. But I also think in an ideal world, everybody fit, he'd be doing very well to get into that squad now. But again, I'd love to see it happen, as would everyone. What a story that would be to see him at the Euros. Ryan Christie, right. Maybe a temptation from some to go top tier, but for me, he's just on the plane. He's having a bit of a tough time at Celtic. Bit of stick from the Celtic fans, really, but done such a good job for Scotland. That goal at Serbia, even before that, a good few goals. Looks good beside Dykes. He's definitely someone who'll be on the plane. He'll be in that squad and hoping to get a start. And no doubt he'll be in Steve Clarke's mind for his sort of perfect 11 just now. Ollie Burke, you're staying at home. Just stay at home, Ollie. Please. Even if you're called up, just like, right, Steve, come on. I'm not good enough to be here. I'm staying at home with Callum Patterson, having a bottle of Doug, and maybe doing sprints in the back garden because I'm really quick, and maybe doing a few pull-ups because I'm really strong as well. But I can't trap a ball, so I'm going to stay home. So that's what I want from Ollie Burke. Just a nice quiet summer from you, son. Yeah, all the physical attributes in the world, but can he trap a ball? So you've not got much of a hope. Scott Bain's another one who I think will stay at home, mainly because if you can't stop Vasilis Barkas getting a game for Celtic, what chance have you got playing at the European Championship? So what right have you got, Scott? Embarrassing. No, I'm joking, that's harsh. He will be in the conversation, or is it harsh? I don't know. He'll be in the conversation with the third choice goalie. I just don't think he'll get it. I think if I'm putting Robbie McCrory as a no chance, I couldn't live myself if I said that Bain was anything better than that. But again, he'll probably be in the conversation. So who knows? Stuart Armstrong, and this is where the McGregor conversation comes back, because if I said 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, if Scotland, no, maybe 2 months ago, maybe less than that, I don't know. But anyway, I said a while back that if Scotland were playing tomorrow, I'd have Armstrong over McGregor, and a few people went, oh, that's a bit harsh on Callum McGregor. McGregor's form has dipped since then. I don't think he was in great form then, but he's not in great form now, even more so. And Armstrong continues to be brilliant for Southampton. And I think one of the criticisms was, in terms of Armstrong playing one of the midfield two, when we do play a two, sometimes we play three, but when we play a two in midfield, when it's Jack and McGregor, people say Armstrong can't do that because he's not defensive enough, he's too attack minded. No, I would have agreed with that maybe a while back, but see, watch him for Southampton now. I mean, the yards he puts in, tackling, running around, winning headers, winning the ball back, doing the defensive work. He's got that side to his game, and it's getting better. And technically, it's just a joy to watch, isn't he? He's got a goal in him, great dribbler of the ball, great passer, drives us forward, which is one of the things I think we value John McGinn for. And I think Armstrong's the closest thing we've got to that in terms of picking it up, running 20, 30 yards with it, getting us up the park, getting us moving forward. And let's get him in against England and get him a chance to right some wrongs. That would be great. So I'm going to keep Armstrong and McGregor on the plane. And I think that if McGregor picks up his form again, he'll budge up one, because he has been so good alongside Ryan Jack for Scotland. But at the moment, we'll keep them there. And the last two are both wild cards, but one I'm a little bit more excited about than the other. So Angus Gunn, young goalie, Southampton, 24 years old. You know, we've been so lucky with goalies over the years in terms of McGregor, Marshall, Gordon at their peak, kind of at the same time, brilliant. And even before that, Scotland traditionally had great goalies. We are in a bit of a pickle, I think, once we lose Marshy and Craig Gordon. I don't know who really makes that. I mean, you just look at the guys that we're talking about for the third choice, the younger guys, there's not anyone standing out at the moment that's going to make that spot there. So now, listen, he's obviously eligible to play for Scotland. He might not have any interest. Steve Clarke might not have any interest. But again, worth mentioning as a wild card option if Clarke's looking to expand his squad, it might happen. But the last one is something I am excited about, because I think there's a decent chance it might happen, and that is Che Adams from Southampton, eligible to play for Scotland, was approached in 2017, didn't commit then, but we weren't a team going to the major championships at that point. So I just wonder if maybe Steve Clarke could bend his ear and get him to declare for Scotland. And listen, if he did, he's on the plane, because he's somebody that I think is a really good player, done well for Southampton this year, and could add to our forward options. But that's the list, folks. Yeah, that was a long video. That took a wee while for us to do. But that might be a bit controversial for some people. We'll have to see what. Listen, give us your thoughts in the comments. I think I can put the link for this tier list that I've made up for you guys to have a go at. So I think that's possible. If it is possible, what I want you to do is go and do your own version of that. Tweet us at TSF Podcast 1 and we'll share yours and see what you guys think. But still a wee bit of fun because we're into the turn of the year now. We're almost in mid-February, so we're 4 months away from Euros time, which is just fantastic, isn't it? Really, there will be lots more content about the Euros between now and then. We'll do preferred starting 11s, all the rest of it. We'll probably do some FM stuff because we love some Football Manager and plenty of podcasts and stuff, and yeah, get everyone excited for the Euros again because we've had that wee lull post Euros back to league action and loads of talking points with what's happened domestically, but let's get excited for the Euros again, man. It's not that far away. It'll fly in. But yeah, as I said, leave your thoughts and have a go at yourself, and we will see you all very, very soon. Thank you very much for watching. See you later. Cheers.